Good afternoon, everyone. Myself, C. Raj Chavla, Vice Chairman MSME Startup Committee of ICI. Welcome you all here. And today we are going to discuss fundraising is an extreme sport. Be conscious. So, friends, once again I welcome you all in today's webinar on this topic: fundraising and conscious about one should take. Fundraising is filled with a unique set of challenges and risks. Today, our speaker is here to explore the dynamic landscape of startup funding, share insights on how to navigate this phase, and discuss strategies to minimize the risk and maximize success. After a series of small execution journey embedded into the large fundraising process, getting that money in the bank does task like sweet victory for startup. But the battle is only half. The fundraising can be compared to procuring ammunition for a long down battle, essential but not the exact purpose of your startup. Friends, being a chartered accountant, we all are familiar with the financial statement, key ratios, and impact of non-compliances on the fundraising. Despite that, there are certain key factors and skill required like projections, valuations, negotiations of terms, preparation of terms sheet, which equally important for fundraising of a startup. Funding can be sources in the form of equity or debt. Still, there are many terms and skills we should have been raising funds. I am sure that today's webinar will be a valuable learning experience for all of us, enabling us to enhance our capabilities for startup and MSME. For valuable insight into the subject, we are honored to have with us our speaker, CA Tarun Chaurasia ji. I welcome Tarun bhai, and coordinator CA Ashi Jain ji. I welcome Ashi ji, who will provide expert guidance on this topic. So I wish you all a great learning. Now over to Ashi ji.
Thank you so much, sir. It is my extreme privilege to be here and introduce today's speaker. Known for his tagline, fundraising is an extreme sport, be cautious, Mr. Tarun Chaurasia has emerged as a seasoned navigator in the financial seas, hailing from the vibrant streets of New Delhi. Armed with the prestigious title of Chartered Accountancy and Company Secretary, he has an experience of 20 years in the financial service industry. His journey has been started with the milestones, each etched with the imprints of his strategic acumen and unwavering resolve. From the corridors of BHW Home Finance to the global platforms of Fidelity Fund Management and Citibank, Mr. Chaurasia has left an indelible mark. However, it was at Rabobank Private Equity Fund where his star truly ascended, illuminating the landscape of private equity with his unparalleled expertise. During his tenure at Rabobank PE Fund, he played a pivotal role in establishing the fund, orchestrating the establishment of the fund not once but twice, and raising capital infusions from limited partners totaling a staggering of $270 million. His multifaceted role as a CFO, deal architect, portfolio steward, and exit strategist exemplified his mastery of this craft. Mr. Chaurasia is highly regarded in the private equity and venture capital industries, known for his extensive network within the investor community. In the recent years, he has been advising corporations, including startups, on their fundraising endeavors at PE partners. His straightforward and professional approach has earned him significant recognition. Additionally, Mr. Chaurasia is a regular faculty on the subjects of valuation and fundraising for the certificate course conducted by the ICAI. He has also authored numerous articles on topics such as entrepreneurship, fundraising, and valuation. I welcome you, sir. You may please start your session, valuable session.
Tarun sir, you are on mute.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Ashi, for a very elaborate introduction. I just hope that I am able to meet the expectation of the audience. And thank you, Mr. Chawla, for providing me this platform and an opportunity to interact with the fellow members. Uh, so today, as Ashi mentioned, that I have previously worked for over 10 years with a well-known private equity fund. So today, I don't want to talk about any theoretical aspect, for which there are tons and tons of articles and literature available all over the Google. We are all qualified professionals. I wanted to talk something which is relevant, meaningful, and practical, and the nuances and the problems which is typically faced by the founders, by the advisors, and all the stakeholders, at large. So I prepared a small presentation. However, I've flooded it with a lot of content to ensure that you grasp it completely. But I'll try to cover it as much ground as possible. Okay, so just give me a few seconds. I'll just put the presentation. Okay, can you see the presentation? Somebody can just say yes?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
I got a yes as well as no.
But I
No.
can see this.
Okay,
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Nah, yeah, it's visible now.
okay, it's visible. One second. All right, this is my favorite tagline. Fundraising is an extreme sport, and there is a reason for it. Two things why I call it as an extreme sport. One is that over 90% of the proposals received by the investor community, including advisors and people like me, it gets rejected within 1 minute. The moment you received an email, you open up the pitch deck and you decided to discard it without even the need to send a response to a prospective startup founder or a business owner. That's reason number one. Reason number two, 2023, over 35,000 startups shut down operations in 2023. And besides the 35,000 shutdowns, there are 20,000 layoff by the leading startup companies. Okay. And point number three is that, as Mr. Chawla mentioned in the very beginning, that there are two ways to raise funds. Either you raise debt or you raise equity. Now, the dynamics of raising debt and raising equity is completely different. Now, raising debt is comparatively a very simple product in comparison to raising an equity. I'm sure most of the practicing chartered accountants would have dealt with uh, a scenario with respect to their client where they have to raise a debt either from an NBFC or from a banking financial institutions. The process is quite simple. The banking institution is expecting a collateral. As long as you can prove that you have a repayment capacity, you have the sufficient amount of collaterals, you would be in a position to secure a debt. We all understand it very well. But when it comes to equity, what essentially we are doing, we are sharing the ownership of our company, which essentially means that the investor is taking a punt onto your business, which essentially means that if you go down, the investor will also go down along with you. So because of these three reasons, I always say that you need to be really, really cautious, and what caution that you guys needs to take when you're embarking on any form of transaction, helping your clients to raise capital. We'll talk about it. Just a glimpse of, I recently written two articles which got published in the CA magazine, January 2023 and January 2024. If you read these articles, I have tried to capture and summarize the issues and problems on the ground when you go out and try to raise capital. So if you get some time, please go and read it. All right. this is just a glimpse of the industry. And before I jump onto the specific portion of it, I'll quickly cover it. The deal value. When I say deal value, I'm talking about the total amount of funds invested in a number of portfolio companies. It went down from $26 billion to $9.6 billion, which is equivalent to about 65% reduction. Okay, so this is a comparison between the number of 2022, which is $26 billion, and 2023, which is about $9.6 billion. So we can clearly say there is a downward trend when it comes to the deal value. If you look at the volume, when we say volume, we're talking about the number of transactions, the number of deals. It went down from 1,611 to 880, close to about 50% reduction in the deal volume. The industry has witnessed a tech first sector. So typically investors are looking at deals which predominantly have tech angle, either directly or indirectly. Sectors such as fintech, software as a service, they have been quite dominant, despite of the fact that the overall deal value went down from $18 billion to $5.6 billion. However, it still accounts for a dominant portion of the overall funding in this particular year 2023. Point number 4, as you can see that investors in 2023 have also kind of focused on more traditional sectors. They have increased their appetite for traditional sectors such as BFSI, consumer goods, healthcare, and many more businesses and services where there is a tech-enabled angle there. Point number 5, generative AI has been a spotlight, and the total amount of funding in the year 2023, it moved from just $15 million to $250 million. Okay, this is like 20x increase for generative AI. Point number 6, the erstwhile sectors we have been talking about, which is B2C commerce, software, SaaS, they are going to be prominent despite of the fact that there is a reduction in the deal value and also a reduction in the deal numbers. Point number 7, we have seen sustainable and sustained interest in the more mature transactions. So typically, the larger transaction, the mature businesses, the growth capital that we are talking about, it is the investors will continue to have interest in larger and bigger deals and more mature businesses. We'll move on to point number 8 here. If you look at the total amount of fund raised in the year 2023, they raised about $8 billion in 2022. And it went down to $4 billion in 2023, from 8 billion to 4 billion. That's the total amount of fund raised by the fund. Okay. Why it happened? Simply because there is a huge amount of accumulated dry powder available in the market. Now, what is dry powder? That's a terminology used in the private equity and venture capital industry. Is basically nothing but a total amount of capital previously raised by the funds yet to be invested in a number of portfolio companies. And obviously, the investors were also very, very cautious about where to invest, when to invest, and how much to invest. Let's move on to point number 9. The overall scenario in the year 23, it is dominated by the local funds, okay, which account for close to about 90% in terms of the overall fundraise. Move on to point number 10. Exit is basically a point wherein when the fund makes an investment, that's an entry. When the fund sell its investment, that's an exit. Okay, so exit went up by 70% in the year 2023, which is a good news. Point number 11, the global crossover funds, they account for 65% of the exit. Point number 2, the new normal, investors community kind of revised their investment focus on traditional sectors. They started, supporting and backing their existing investment and existing portfolio companies rather than funding new companies. And then point number 13, as I mentioned earlier as well, 35,000 startups shut their shops, 20,000 layoff from the leading startup companies. Okay, so it's not been a good year. And then last but not the least, the startup also got a little bit cautionary. They tightened their belt. They started conserving their cash, and they also realized that the honeymoon is over and it's time to build a roadmap towards the profitability and generating cash flow rather than just and simply increasing the top line numbers. So you can see I have given you 14 statistics and top line, the headline news for the private equity and venture capital industry for the year 2023. It can clearly be seen that there is a downfall. At the same time, there is a huge amount of dry powder available and waiting to be invested. Okay, the point here is that money is not an issue. There's a lot of money and a lot of investors. All sorts of investors are there in the market. But the question is that these investors don't get to see investable businesses. Now, investable businesses, again, a very subjective term, and we'll talk and discuss a little bit more about it as we go along. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Now, I'm going to talk about few things just for you to, give you an overall perspective. When we say that fundraising is an extreme sport, be cautious, and the industry has went down, you need to understand how this industry dynamics works. So, how does what's the business model of these funds? Okay, how these funds are typically set up? How do funds actually work on deals? Okay, we all know a little bit, but I'll give you an insight. Being with the fund for over 10 years, I'll tell you some of the secrets that I know, and I will share here. We'll talk about some of the emerging trends in the venture capital and private equity industry. The $1 million question: how do we approach? You have a business, you have a deal, and you are completely clueless. How do we move forward? We'll also talk about what are the investors typically look at the business. Now, this is in connection with I mentioned the term investable businesses, right? So typically, what are those few things which typically every investor look for it? Okay, besides the generic point, excellent team, excellent that, and it's okay, but we need to also understand and go beyond that. How do we prepare for a fundraise? All right, and then what are typical problems and issues that I have personally encountered, after dealing with them for many years, and I keep repeating the same amount of feedback to every founder, every startup owner, and also to a lot of advisors in the market. Okay, so we'll talk about that as well. Few words of advisory from my end. And another $1 million question is that why investors have not responded to my email. I sent them a pitch deck, but they did not come back, despite of the fact that I've been following. All right, let's move on to the section 1. What's the business model of the fund? So typically, you would come across these two terminologies: venture capital and private equity. Don't get confused. Okay, from a macro perspective, दोनों एक ही बातें हैं. The only difference is when we use the word venture capital, we are actually talking about early stage of businesses. When we use the word private equity, we are talking about investment in a more mature businesses. That's it. Now, what is early and what is mature? It is very subjective. Okay, typically you can say companies at an idea stage, company at a prototype stage, company who have just launched the product, company who have just started marketing their product, company who has just got a first check, revenue after the sale of their product and services. They definitely will call it as a venture capital, right? The question is there any hard line that you can draw? Okay, if you cross this much of revenue, or if you cross this many number of employees, then it will be called private equity. The answer is no. There is no hard and fast rule. We are just saying these are just terminologies used. Jab bade businesses, the big businesses, the mature businesses, when we talk about, we said private equity. That's it. There is no other difference. So don't get confused here. Are these commercial investors? Yes, they are commercial investors. They are not here for social service. Their sole objective is to make capital gain. Their business is to make investment, and after few years, the business is to sell that investment. Okay. Are impact investors not commercial investors? Now, there is some level of misunderstanding among the business owners and the advisors that they are impact investors. Yes, they are impact investors, but they are also commercial investor, and they are expecting pretty much the similar amount of returns like any other commercial investor. The only difference is when we use the word impact investor, it means that their investment strategy, their investment thesis is focused on those sectors, on those businesses which makes an impact in some form and manner. For example, somebody will say, okay, I will make my investment thesis is that I would make an investment in water related issues, waste management, electrical vehicles, mobility, etc., etc. Or maybe I would make an investment only in tier 2 and tier 3 cities. So these are impact investments, but they're commercial investors. I covered this, that capital gain is a key. Every single transaction, every single investment by these institutional investors is made with an intent to make capital gain. Okay. Financial investors versus strategic investors. When we talk about the world of VCs and PE, please note they are financial investors. Okay, they're not strategic investors. Who is in a strategic investor? And a strategic investor is somebody who primarily comes from a similar industry or a similar business background, and who has chosen your company to make an investment, which essentially means the knowledge, the know-how of that strategic investor is multi-x than a typical financial investors. Okay, a financial investor is at a point in time evaluating investment opportunities in multiple sectors. One of the team member would be focusing on manufacturing businesses, another would be focusing on maybe healthcare, another would be focusing on some service industry. They don't have that level of know-how which typically a strategic investor would know. It's like somebody who's running an NBFC business. Okay, who would know how the nuances of the NBFC better than the NBFC promoters and the founders, right? So that's where the difference is. And they have a limited life cycle of the fund. It is usually between 8 to 10 years. That's where they're supposed to do the investment and then exit. So typically, the first 4 and 5 years, they are just focusing on making the investment, and the next 5 years of the investment cycle, they are focusing on portfolio and then making preparation for the exits. Vapas bhi jana hai. You've got to return the capital that you have raised from your investors. Okay, please try to understand, just like a business owner, just like a startup, try to raise capital from a fund for its business expansion plan. Pretty much similar to it, a fund also try to raise capital from their investor. Their investor is called LPs, limited partners. Okay, so they raise capital, they sell a pitch to their LPs. Okay, we are creating a pool of $200 million. We will make investments in India. We will make investment in such and such sectors. This will be my minimum amount. The entire pitch they will make, and then they will sell it to LPs around the world, and that's how they will create that pool of money. And once the pool of money is there, they will start making an investment as per their pitch deck, as per their charter document, as per their investment thesis. So this is how typically the business model of the funds. Now let's move on to the next section. How funds are set up? How do you make it? As I mentioned that typically a fund will make a pitch to their LPs. Now that pitch is called PPM, Private Placement Memorandum. It's like a big document which contain every single and minute detail of the fund to be set up. Okay, where will we make the investment? What are the sectors, ticket size, team members, background of the the general partner who is making a pitch, how many team members have been hired, why should you invest, blah blah blah. All kind of things. What next? The most and please focus on this slide. This is very very important for understanding the nuances of this industry. uh, when the fund makes a pitch to their LPs, okay, the most important thing is investment thesis. Okay, you have to tell your LPs kahan pe investment karenge, where will you make an investment. Is the fund is going to focus on Indian geography, or is going to focus on Asia, or whatever. Okay, similarly, what kind of a sectors that you will focus. Okay, so there are sector focused fund, there are sector agnostic fund, there are thematic funds. Okay, so there are funds which say we are impact fund. Okay, there are funds which say we invest only in manufacturing businesses. Okay, so every fund has a dedicated authorized investment thesis. It's like a charter document. Okay, they will also make a note what kind of a businesses that they will typically make an investment. Okay, for example, they would say manufacturing businesses. Within the manufacturing, they will say that highly capital intensive businesses will not form part of my investment thesis, and so on and so forth. Okay, and the most important is ticket size. Okay, how much investment that they will make in one company, what is the minimum amount and what is the maximum amount. So every fund will have this ticket size. Okay, so they might be happy. Okay, minimum 1 million or maximum 5 million in one company, or maybe there could be a fund minimum 100 million or maximum, let's say, $500 million. So every fund is unique in terms of its ticket size. So you need to know these things before you approach any damn investor across the world. You need to learn, you need to understand their investment thesis. Where would they make an investment? It's not like this pamphlet. You are a business owner. You can't behave like a salesman with a pamphlet printed on your pocket and you start distributing door to door. It doesn't work that way. It's a very very niche industry and a niche area. A lot of work, a lot of efforts are needed for this. And you might also have a negative list of sectors. For example, the investment thesis will say that, okay, we will not invest in liquor businesses, just an example. What's the next step? The next step is raise capital from LPs. We just covered it. You might register your fund onshore or offshore. Typically, when we say offshore, we are talking about the tax haven countries such as Mauritius, Cayman Islands, Singapore, so on and so forth. Or you might have a domestic fund registered with SEBI, maybe AIF category 1, category 2, and category 3. Next point in the journey of how do we set up the fund, please understand and note every fund will have an investment committee. Investment committee role is to take the most important decision Should we invest or not invest? Should we exit or not exit? They are the decision making authority in every single fund. The investment committee will have few, it's like a group of people, like 5 6 7, depends upon fund to fund. Okay, they might be the representative of the LPs, they might be the they might include the independent experts from the industry, it might also include one of the team member of the fund, the senior most team member, and so on and so forth. So IC has been given the responsibility to take the final decision of yes or no. So you need to know. Okay, hiring of investment team. Usually, all the work of deal making is done by the investment team. So typically, there are three level of team structure. So on top, it's a fund manager. Okay, fund manager is somebody who is leading a particular deal, and then there is an analyst. So analyst job is to analyze the entire deal, work and report to the fund manager, and then there is a third partner who's a research associate. Okay, so it's like a three-member team: fund manager, analyst, and research associates. All three-member forms a team, and that they work on a particular company. And after they do their work, they submit a proposal to the investment committee. Okay, asking, sir, we have done our work, this is a fantastic company, we have negotiated the regulation, this is the company. It's like a report, it's like an audit report. After doing a research and analysis on the company, you're submitting a report to the investment committee and asking for their permission. Sir, can we go ahead and invest? Okay, now it's time for the investment committee to grill the members of the team, and they will ask n number of questions: why, if, but, and whatever. If they need more information, they will ask for more information. So because they are also experts, the people who are sitting in the investment committee, they are top level C class executive expert in their domain. So don't try to make fool of them. So a lot of hard work goes and done by the investment team, preparation of a report. The report gets submitted to the investment committee, and finally the investment committee takes the decision. Okay, how funds work on deals? What happened? Every investor is flooded with pitch deck. Everybody in the country. Okay, whether you're a VC or a PE or a family office or an accelerator or an incubator, you name it, and you're flooded with deals. Okay, and I've personally spoken to many of them. The first thing, जिसको भी आप डील भेजते हो, okay, whosoever you're sending the deal, you might have got secure an email ID. He could be an analyst, he could be a research associate, he could be a fund manager, anybody in the fund. The first thing is the filter. He will filter the deal. Is that deal matches with my investment thesis or not? Okay, so if the fund is focused, let's say, on a healthcare sector, and you are running into you're sending him a pitch deck for let's say a manufacturing businesses, irrespective of the goodness of your proposal, there is a high likelihood he will not even respond to it. Okay, because it does not match with their investment thesis. Take for another example, you sent a pitch deck, the sector is right, and you said, I'm looking to raise $10 million. Now, maybe that particular fund is not allowed from their charter to make a $10 million of investment. They're allowed a range of $500,000 up to $2 million. So essentially what you've done, you are wasting your own time. You're wasting the time of that recipient, the investment team member in the fund. And then you will keep crying, oh, nobody respond. I sent him 3 reminders. I've sent 20 emails, not even a single one has responded, simply because you are acting like a marketing guy. It's like printing, using a printing press, got your pamphlet printed, and you start distributing your pamphlet without doing the hard work. It's not going to work. So level 1 is filtration of the deal. 10 deals received, 9 rejected. 1 deal, it will move forward. Okay. What next? First call by the investment team member with the founder or promoter. Suppose your deal matches with their investment team. What next? That particular team member, whosoever has received your proposal, will, excuse me, will do a con call with you. The objective of that discussion, that first call, is to get a better understanding of the business, the dynamics of the business. Okay. The whole idea is to go a little deeper and reach to a conclusion. What is trying to achieve? He's trying to say, can we do it? Is it good on the face? Is it perfect for our investment thesis? Is it something that we are looking? Is it one of those deals that we are looking? So he makes that judgment after that call, and once he makes a judgment, what happened next? Now there's something called deal pipeline meeting. Now let's say within a fund there are 10 to 12 people. Each one of them is flooded with deals. Okay. Now let's say 10 people, they received 100 deals. Out of 100, only 3 got filtered. Okay. Now they will take that particular deal, particular transaction, particular company to a deal pipeline. Matlab, internally, they have a meeting. So there are 10 people, they all sit in a conference room and they will say, okay, I've got this deal, it's into healthcare business, they are running hospitals, they are wanting to build a chain of hospitals, blah, 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 whatever the details is. Now the internal team members discuss with each other, and that's how they get the feedback, whether it's a good deal, bad deal, should we pursue, not pursue, what are the challenges, what are the issues, what are the dynamics, so on and so forth. Okay, so it's an internal discussion among the team members on the business. Now you did a filter. Number one, you had a call with the promoter, and then you had an internal discussion with your colleagues. What next? The senior member will come forward, the fund manager. He will come forward. He and his junior analyst will do a joint call with you. Again, the idea is to go a little bit deeper to understand the nuances of your business. Okay. Now the game becomes serious from here on. उससे पहले अभी time pass हो रहा था. From now you are little serious. The fund is serious. They are trying to evaluate the business and the opportunity. Let's move on to the next point. Preparation of the term sheet. So you had a discussion, you like the business, you secure further information as needed, and finally you are thinking that it's a fantastic deal. We should go ahead and submit it to the just hold on. Hello. Sorry, I thought somebody from the institute is calling. So a term sheet. Term sheet is nothing but a memorandum of understanding between the fund and the company, which capture the basic terms and conditions of the transaction. Okay, how much we will invest, when will we invest, what are the terms, what are the rights that we will take, and then what is the valuation. They will negotiate the valuation, and multiple rounds of exchange, negotiation, discussion, etc., will happen. Finally, it will be captured in the term sheet. Okay, so it just you can say it's a beginning, the first document which comes into the picture, which is formalizing the relationship between the fund and the company. What next? You got the term sheet executed by the company, but fund will not sign it. Fund can sign only once the IC approve it. So they will go back to their IC. They will say, okay, here is the note that we have prepared. It's like 30-40 page note talking every damn thing about the business, about the company, about its future, expansion plan, fundraising, fund needs, etc., etc., etc. IC will do discussion on the deal amongst themselves, presented by the deal team. The deal team is three people, I said: fund manager, analyst, and the research associate. So discussion will happen. Let's say the IC says, okay, it's a good deal, let's move ahead, let's make an investment. What next? The next is due diligence. Now the fund will start engaging third party vendors. They might appoint a firm of chartered accountants to do a diligence with respect to either accounting or tax, and another auditor for forensic, another auditor for technology audit, another one for environment, a lawyer company for doing the diligence on the legal side. So multiple vendors, third party vendors, will be appointed to do a due diligence on the company, and all of these third party vendors will submit their report to the fund. The company and the promoter will not have access to these reports. These are private and confidential report between the fund and the third party vendor. Most of these smaller funds, that they have an in-house team of due diligence, so they have a guy on the accounting side, they have a guy on the legal side, and so on and so forth, just to save cost. So it differ from fund to fund, but diligence means a detailed investigation, analysis of the representations that you have made till date to the deal team and to the fund. You have been boasting about, we will move from 10 crore to 500 crore. We have 20 clients on board. We have already signed the contracts. We have tenders, this, that, all the nonsense, precisely the representations and the statements that you have been making to the deal team, to the fund. This will be cross-checked and cross-verified, because this is the basis which the term sheet was signed and an IC note was prepared and IC approved the transaction. Okay, so it's like cross-checking. So the point here is, please make sure that whatever you're representing to your investors, don't write, don't say anything which is inaccurate in any means. Okay, you will be caught pretty soon in this step. What next? You've done the diligence, 4-5 vendors submit the reports, the deal team will analyze the report. Is everything okay? Is there are negative flags? Is there any material deviations? It's like an audit report. Is there any qualification or not? Okay, so you analyze the report, you make a summary of those reports, go back to the investment committee again, second time, make a presentation. Look, we've done the DD, we've received the report, this is the summary findings, okay, and we haven't find anything which is materially different, and we are okay to go ahead with the investment. IC will review your proposal and will give its consent to go ahead and make an investment. What next? It's time for the lawyers to jump in, prepare the shareholders agreement, and get it signed. Once the documents are signed, it's time for cash. The company will be funded as per the legal documentation. And once the funding is done, it's time to call for a board meeting and allotment of shares to the fund. So that's how the entire process of how typically a fund works in evaluating a deal, in funding a particular transaction. That step. It's not hard written rule here. There may not be, in some of the cases, there may not be 2 level of investment committee approval. It could be just 1. Okay. You may not appoint a third party vendor. You may be having your own in-house team. So depending upon the size of the fund, the amount of the transaction, the risk, and blah blah blah, you will have minor tweaks in this entire process. So this is how the funds evaluate deals. Okay, the last point: monitoring MIS and preparation of exit. So once the investment is made, it's time for the deal team to keep a close eye on that transaction, secure monthly MIS, keep doing internal meeting, keep discussing the progress of the portfolio companies. And after 3 years or 4 years, you start thinking, discussing, and talking about how do we exit. Should we start preparing for an IPO? Should we start thinking of selling my stake to another strategic investor, or maybe to another PE investor, and so forth? Because at the end of the day, you have to exit. As I said, you're a financial investor. Your objective is that you invested X amount, and let's make a capital gain. If you're getting 5x, let's get out of this company. Okay. Emerging trends. Now, let me just talk. I'll try. It's 2:46. I'll try to leave larger amount of time for Q&A and discussion, because there's no point that I keep communicating and it's a one-way communication. So I'll quickly finish it. I'm happy to take up the questions. So the emerging trends are evolving investment thesis. I said in the beginning that typically it's the charter document which fix your investment thesis in terms of the investment, the sector, the ticket size, the kind of businesses where you would make investments, and so on and so forth. But these investment theses keep evaluating because of the changing macro and micro level scenario. Okay, so it's like back to 2021, and then Corona happened, and suddenly there is a tech angle in everything you think and talk about. It's coming on board, right? So the investment thesis of majority of the fund got changes, and then suddenly, EV sector comes into the picture. Everybody was running after the EV. So the investment thesis is also evolving, and you need to know, because the fund was set up, let's say 4 years back. They had an investment thesis, not necessarily and not 100% that they would be continue to follow the same investment thesis. It might change in between. The IC committee had a discussion, and they said, okay, I think these days we are looking to invest in a fintech company because the sector is doing well. So it might not form part of their investment thesis, but as long as the investment committee takes the decision, because they are the final authority. So you need to know how things are changing at the fund level. Co-investment. Now, if you look at the data, 99% of the deals are co-invested. Okay. Now, till 2017-18, it was not the norm, but today, even if it is a $500,000 deal, I'm just talking about 3-4 crore rupees ki baat kar raha hu. Even if it is a $500,000 deal, you would notice that the number of investors who have joined together, it could be 3, it could be 4, it could be 5, and it could be more. Okay, so this is how you diversify your risk, and this is a way that deals are happening in today's time. Co-investment. So you might be approaching investor A, let's say for $1 million. Investor A is evaluating that opportunity, and investor A is a lead investor, and investor A decides to make an investment. Then investor A is already in touch with investor B, C, D, who are having a similar investment thesis. It's like a group of friends. So they will share the opportunity with investor B, investor C, and investor D, and say, this guy has a requirement of $1 million. Would you like to join the consortium? And they said, yes. Okay. So they all 4 of them will come together, and that's how you make the investment. Flood of followers fund. Now, in the last 2 to 3 years, everybody today is an angel investor. Okay, जिसके पास 1 crore रुपए भी है, वो भी कह रहा है I'm an angel investor. Okay, somebody who has a little larger money, let's say 4-5 crores, they are going ahead and setting up the fund. Now, the last 2 years, lot of these smaller funds have come on board. 5 crore ka fund, 10 crore ka fund, 8 crore ka fund, 15, 20, 25. Now, they don't have the bandwidth, they don't have the infrastructure, they don't they don't have the ability to spend too much in hiring their investment team. So what they do, they typically tie up with multiple larger funds who are having a similar kind of an investment thesis. Okay, and they said, okay guys, we wanted to have a strategic tie-up with you. If you are doing a deal, we will also join you. Just say, I just gave you an example in case of co-investment. So investor A was the lead investor here, okay, and he shared the deal with investor BCD. Now the investor BCD may be a follower investor or may not be a follower investor, okay. We are talking about somebody whose business model primarily is to co-invest with another lead investor. जैसे कि यार आप अपना पैसा लगा लेना, हमारा भी थोड़ा सा डाल देना उसमें. Okay, so there is a flood of followers investors in the market. Technology is key. Whatever you talk about it, almost everybody, if not everybody, over 90% of the investor community in India, they are all looking for tech related, either technology, tech enabled businesses, tech enabled services, or some angle, because technology helps you to grow exponentially and very fast. Okay, typical traditional way of doing businesses may not move from 1x to 50x in 5 years, but if technology angle is there, it can. So it's very important how you use the technology in your business, which help it to grow faster than what you can think of. Sustainability and impact investment. Lot of funds are there in the market who apparently call themselves impact investors. Supposedly, their charter documents clearly have given a mandate that you have to make an investment only in the impact sector. And it could be tier 3 cities, or tier 3 states, or tier 3 cities of India. It could be let's say waste management sector, it could be an education sector, anything which makes an impact. Okay, so a lot of funds are there in the market. All right, this is everybody wants to hear how do we approach. So now, being a firm of chartered accountant, you have a huge client base. Okay, and I'm sure you would have been approached by one of them, and if not them, but from your fellow colleague, fellow firm of chartered accountants ki yaar client hai, paisa chahiye 10 million. Okay, do you know somebody? It's a very common question and discussion among the chartered accountants. But the question is, the level of expertise, experience which is required in this industry is completely different. As I said, the dynamics of raising fund and dynamics of raising debt is completely different. So how to approach investors? I'll tell you what needs to be done, but this is not the short way. There's no shortcut to it. If you start doing it all yourself, it's not going to work. It's like a journey which you have to complete for at least 2 years. Well, connect and connect. The question is, how do we connect? Okay, in this digital world, it's not a big deal to secure an email ID of prospective institutional investor. Is it difficult? No, absolutely not difficult. Very easy. There are software, there are services, subscriptions, companies selling you data. Okay. What else? You got in touch with your colleague or another firm of chartered accountants. अरे यार किसी को जानता है क्या? NBFC में पैसा लगाना है, कौन करेगा? He said, no, I don't know. I think I know somebody. So typically, this is how you are trying to work on a deal. Or maybe one guy know another 2-3 guys, and they said, I have somebody who knows. Can you help? Now, it's not going to work that way. As I said, if you approach, let's say, 25 investors, maybe just one could be keen, and that depends a lot, on your approach. So, if I have to give you one simple, smart, and simple solution, and you should just follow this blindly, because I'm saying this with a lot of experience. If you don't have connects and you want to build that connect, point number one, it will not happen overnight. It might take a year, 2 years. Okay, it's like building a connection. It's like a networking. जो आज आपने डिसाइड किया कि मेरे को नेटवर्किंग करनी है, डजंट हैपन. इलेक्शन भी जीत रहा है तो 6 महीने पहले यू हैव टू प्रिपेयर फॉर इट. So same ways, I guess LinkedIn is the best platform where you try to reach and connect with a lot of people. A lot of information is already available there, which is a fund, who are the team member, who is a fund manager, who is a vice president, so and so. Try and build your network gradually, and it will take 2 years. Trust me. Okay, if you're starting from zero today, that's the only and the smartest way, because using other means, by talking to one or the other guy, or to somebody, if somebody can introduce you, that's the best. You get the shortcut, you get the introduction. But how far you will be able to get introduced, that's a question mark. How many introductions that you will get, that's again a question mark. I would strongly advise and suggest, because I work very closely with a lot of firm of chartered accountants, and I get a lot of proposals, despite of the fact that I am not an investor, simply because I work in tandem with these firms. Because I've been into this industry for 15 years, I've worked for 10 years on a fund, so I actually built a network with over 90% of the investors who are directly or indirectly investing in India. So for me, it's like my data is ready, my networking is ready, and it's easier for me to kind of approach these people. Most of their mobile numbers will be on my deal. So you can keep connecting, and keep connecting through LinkedIn. That's the only way. Okay. The biggest mistake, I mean, and I'm saying this with a lot of experience here. The biggest common mistake is how you approach, and once you approach, what you send them. Okay, I get a big one-pager note on a LinkedIn message. Sir, we are this company, that company, my company has done this, blah 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 blah. Like, nobody will read it. Trust me, nobody will read it. If you send these long messages, I get mails from people with whom I don't know or haven't interacted. Sir, we are this company. They attach their deck, and most of the time I feel that it's like they're running a software and sending an email to the whole world. I don't look at it. It's a business. As I said, you're not selling your product. कोई प्रोडक्ट नहीं है कि आप बेच रहे हो और फेसबुक पे मार्केटिंग का कैंपेन लगा दिया और वो चल रहा है. इट डजंट वर्क दैट वे. इट्स a highly strategic and niche way of working. If you have the connect, and if you secured your connect, the second most important step is to learn and understand their investment thesis. Okay, because if you don't do that, you're wasting your time. Don't do that. It's like you should know your target audience. ठीक है, प्रोडक्ट आपका है मीट और बेच रहे हो वेजिटेरियन मार्केट में जाके, तो कैसे चलेगा? हाउ इज गोना वर्क? इट्स नॉट गोना वर्क. टारगेट ऑडियंस यू नीड टू नो. And in our case, target audience is knowing and learning about their investment thesis. You are looking to raise $10 million, and you have sent your pitch deck to an investor who cannot invest $10 million simply. Okay, how do you learn their investment thesis? No, it's a very tiring job. The problem is nobody wants to learn, nobody wants to invest time. लोगों को लगता है ईमेल आईडी मिल जाए और मैं भेज दूंगा. I'm sorry, it's not going to work like that. You have to go to their LinkedIn profile. There is a write-up. There is a description which talks about their investment thesis. They give you the background of the fund, how they set up, what kind of a deals that they have done, what kind of a businesses that they would like to make an investment. That's source number one. Source number two is go to their website, read the content of their investment thesis. Source number three, go to Google, write the name of their fund. Whenever they would have set up their fund, maybe 2 years back, 3 years back, almost in 99% of the cases, every time whenever the fund is launched, there is a news article. 100%. In that news article, the fund top executive is talking about that why they have raised this fund, where are they going to make an investment, what kind of investment that they will make, blah blah blah. Source number four, what kind of investments that the fund has already made. I've given you four important. If you do not read these four, like it's like complete level of stupidity. Okay, you need to know the investment thesis, and there are four sources of learning about the investor before you send any pitch deck to anybody. Okay, I'm repeating: LinkedIn description, website. Whenever the fund got launched, there is a news article which talks about the investment thesis. And four, what all businesses and deals the fund has already made invested. जब आप चारों को पढ़ लोगे ना, and then you will be able to correlate. Mere reading one thing will not work. You will have to read all four. Now the problem is reading all four requires at least 15 minutes. And the advisors are not willing to do it. I'm sorry to say, everybody wants quick results, but they don't want to learn. Now, once you read those investment theses from four different sources, now you get a better understanding कि यार ये investment करेगा नहीं करेगा मेरे धंधे में. Will, it's like, it's a judgment. After doing your preparation, will he makes an investment or not? Next point, I mean, send only a teaser. I get all sorts of shady decks every single day, fancy decks, nice, fantastic presentation, beautifully made, used through a third party vendor who built some nice slides, and so on and so forth. It has happened that I have reviewed the entire presentation, and I could not understand dhanda kya hai, what is a business, the meaningful and the relevant information is missing in majority of the deck. Okay, all sorts of gyan from ChatGPT, industry is this, market size is that, this is the problem, and this is what we are planning to do. This is my expansion plan. 10 years we will reach 100 crore. My valuation is 5,000 crore. I have done my DCF. All the nonsense, you will see in text. Can you make your first interaction with just one or maximum 2 pages? A simple word file with 2 columns. Essentially, your 20-30 page of deck, we have to summarize in that 2 page in the most simplistic manner. We call it teaser. Okay. If you don't have the format of the teaser, drop me an email. I will send that format to you. What is teaser? Teaser is nothing but a summary of almost everything which investors wanted to do. कोई फायदा नहीं है अपने 30 पेज का डेक जो है, you keep circulating door to door. It's not going to work because investors are extremely occupied and busy. They don't have time to go through your 20 pages. They will open the mail. They will see, okay, sector is this, company is this guy has done this much of numbers last year. He is in a loss. Don't hide it. Don't try to hide the information. Okay, this is my scale, this much cost. Meaningful and relevant information. This is my shareholding structure. This is what I have already achieved. The most important point. Everybody talking about the next 5 years. I know that is important. Who are you today? You got to first tell them. Okay. So please build a nice teaser in just 2 pages. Use the word file. Right. Start from name of the company is this. location Mumbai, sector healthcare, जैसे 10th क्लास में बनाते हैं ना, वैसे ही बनाना है अपने सब सेक्टर दिस, number of directors 5, number of employees 20, number of factories, a factory is located in Mumbai of equivalent to an area of 2000 square feet, blah blah blah. Okay, what is the business? The business of the company is to sell healthcare policies focusing in Flana region. What is the revenue model? This is how you make money. How much you did in the last financial year? This is what I have done. This is my net revenue. This is my EBITDA. This is my PAT. How much capital you have invested in the business? This is the capital that all information give factual information. Okay, don't make it a general PPT. It's not going to work. Okay, how much is the time? Let me. What investors are looking in the business? Another Me Too model. Okay, if there are too many companies which has got funded and you come out with another company, another business practically doing the same thing, there are very low chances that you also get funded. If there are no, current transaction and stability. Okay, so how stable you are, what is the current traction into your business? This is extremely important. One can say, can your company, which is an idea stage, which is pre-launch or maybe just launched or pre-revenue, can they get funded? Theoretically, yes, they can be funded. Practically, no. No investor is willing to take a bet on companies which haven't shown traction. What is traction is again a little bit subjective in terms of numbers. We can say how much is the revenue, how much you have already done, so and so forth. What is the IRR in the making? What is the objective, as I mentioned, of the fund is to make capital gain that essentially converted to the IRR, internal rate of return. So you invested 100 rupees in year 0 and you exit at, let's say, 800. So in 5 years, so you have covered from 100 rupees to 800 rupees in 5 years, effectively how much IRR that you are making. So every investor will do a calculation before making an investment, that if I make an investment, am I making this kind of an IRR or not? Okay, so that's a decision making question for them. Can this company grow exponentially? What kind of a technology that they are using? Will it grow just 10% CAGR or 20% CAGR, or it can manifold in the next 3 to 4 years? They're always looking for a long-term view. They are not interested in a short-term bet. A minimum average holding period is 4 to 5 years, which typically they would like to hold their investments. No capex heavy. Nobody is interested these days. I'm not saying that nobody makes an investment, but practically, very, very few investors who like to make investment in capex heavy businesses. Too many players. Again, we discussed about it. It's like, take for an example, grocery distribution. If you're another company in NCR talking about delivering milk at 6 a.m. in the morning at your doorstep, trust me, nobody's going to interest, because there are only 10 people who's ready to deliver milk at your doorstep. Okay, so too many people, too crowded market. It's not going to work for you. Project financing is not the forte of private equity and venture capital industry. It's typically managed by the banking institutions. What's your skin in the game? It's like आपने कुछ पैसा लगाया नहीं है, and then you're expecting prospective investors to put in, reasonably a handsome amount of money. It's not going to work. Emerging business models, as I mentioned, that investors are keen in putting businesses in emerging sectors and new business models like generative AI, AI-driven businesses, tech-enabled businesses, defense tech, space tech, environmental, and so on and so forth. sorry, this is the wrong spelling. It's not concentration, it's concentration of business, product, location, and client wise. So if you are a revenue generating company, you need to understand, if you're generating your entire revenue, let's say from just one client or one product, it's not going to work. Fast growth and potential in the business is extremely, these are some of the points which I have jotted down that every investors look at it, and there are many more points. Excellent team, the sector is rising, that there is a government support and whatnot. But these are some of the points which probably the investors would be keen to discuss, evaluate, and look at. Okay. Preparation of a fundraise. Okay, once you decide it's time to fundraise, क्या करेंगे आप? सबसे पहले आप teaser बनाएंगे. Once you make a teaser and the investors show the interest, you will then send a detailed business presentation along with the financial model and also the valuation working. That's how it all starts. What next? In fact, before you share the teaser, you have to identify your target investor community. We discussed and talked about it, that you got to read those 4 sources of information to know and understand your investor. Next point is understanding investment thesis. We covered it. Hire an advisor. Please, if you lack understanding and knowledge about this industry, if you lack connect, so you as an advisor, you should definitely tie up with some investment banker who has been there in the industry for quite some time now, because otherwise, frankly speaking, it's not going to work. It's a full-time job. If you talk about me, if I have to work on a deal, I have to personally involve. Like 80% of my time goes in helping a particular company to raise funds. It's not the job of juniors. It's not the job. It's a bloody job to approach the investors. It's a game of relationship. It's a game of understanding the art of deal making and so on and so forth. You have to be really knee deep into this work of fundraising. So the best is to do a tie up and work with the investment banker. Issues with the founders. These are timing and stage of business that founders attempt to raise funds. So majority of the proposals gets rejected simply because they are too early in their life. अभी धंधा शुरू किया है and they are focused more on the fundraise करना, because they have heard from media or from one of their friends would have raised some $1 million in the past. They think that every time they can Harry will get the fund. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen. You have to be at the right time, at the right stage of your business. You should know when to raise fund. Okay. Excess ask of fund. So you haven't generated any revenue and you are asking $5 million. Or maybe you have generated some revenue, let's say 20 lakhs of revenue, and then you're looking to raise $3 million. These are very subjective things. Don't take it as there are companies with zero revenue and yet have received hefty amount of capital, right? So what I'm trying to say broadly, generally, these are important points which needs to be considered. Too early, idea, pre-revenue, prototype, pre-launch, etc. If you ask me, nobody is interested to fund these companies. Please work on your business, grow it, scale it before you talk and think about funding. Poor pitch deck, as I mentioned, lacks meaningful information. Diversified investor base. You need to know you have all kinds of investors floating in the market. You have institutional VCs, you have corporate VCs, you have family offices, you have incubator, you have accelerator, you have endowment fund, you have impact fund, different category of funds. You need to, this is again part of your knowing your audience. Wrong way in style of approaching the investors. Don't, as I said, first build relationship, build a network, send a nice email with that region. That's it. Don't send those lengthy notes over over email, over LinkedIn or messaging. It doesn't work. Targeting the wrong investor audience, we discussed about it. Not using the advisor. Most of the promoters like, "Hey, yeah, we know it. I know it. I will do it myself." If you can do everything on your own, then essentially you are uh, discounting the large investment banking industry who is helping these companies to raise capital. So don't underestimate uh, the uh, occupation of an investment banker. It takes a lot to build those connections. No dearth of capital. We talked about it. There's a huge amount of dry powder available. Uh, you know, Capital to be invested into the business. So there's a good number of investors and a good amount of capital waiting to be invested. And just you got to have the right proposal, the right business, uh, for them to get invested. Focus on sustainable business model. Don't be in a rush, please. I've seen that the entrepreneurs, the founders have been thinking at the very first day of thinking of an idea that, oh, I will get funding, we will get fund. No, please note, 95% people don't get fund. Okay, work on your business model, thinking you will never get a fund. The question is, ask these tough questions to yourself. Can you survive without funds? Would you be able to build a sustainable business model? If yes, you will get funding. As I said, funding is not an issue. Too early is an issue. Try to look for strategic investors if you get, because strategic investors would understand, relate, and connect better with you versus a financial investor or a typical VC. Investment thesis is key. This is the mistake by almost every founder and every advisors. If you don't learn and get a better understanding of the investment thesis, it's not going to work. Oh, why don't investors respond to my mail even if it's a no? I think I've answered this question for the simple reason they are very busy. They get all kinds of shit proposals every single day. Their email is flooded and they have stopped responding. They would respond only to those proposals where they feel that yes, it seems okay with them, and then they will respond. If they feel not okay, uh, out of courtesy, they might come back and say no to you, or they may not say no to you. It's as simple as that. So no hard feelings here. Yeah, in an idealistic scenario, they should come back and say no, we are not interested. But sometimes they don't even write those 4 words. It's completely okay. So even after one reminder, they don't respond. You can safely presume that you are heading or following up to the wrong person. As simple as that. Excellent. I think I have covered up, I've tried to cover up as fast as possible with the objective that we should engage into some level of discussion and question and answer. It should not be a one-way street. Happy to take up question. Over to you guys.
So we have a few questions. A first one is how to raise funds for NPA borrower.
NPA borrowers.
Yes, sir.
Definitely, the VCs and the PE world. It's not for them. I can tell you that no VC or no private equity will invest into businesses which has turned into an NPA. Essentially, you're short of cash. Essentially, your business is not working well. Your top line and bottom line is not supporting, and this is not one of those kind of businesses, where these venture capital and private equity investor would like to invest. There are other modes and ways. There are few funds, which is like, which typically invest in it. It's a restructure fund. There are funds which are looking at businesses which are under stress. So there are few set of very limited, like you can count it 5, 6, 10 in the market who might be interested. Now again, depend upon which sector they are focusing upon, what's the ticket size, how badly that particular company is mismanaged or unorganized, how much stress this company particular has. So yes, there are funds. You need to know who are they. You need to know their investment thesis, and then you may think of approaching them.
Yes, sir, that's true. One more question, that is compliances and precautions to be taken by a CA when he is handling fundraising.
Compliance is, there is as such. I don't want to get into the Companies Act or the income tax of it. I'm sure practicing chartered accountants are better equipped to handle those questions and that mystery. But in general, when you try and raise a fund, okay, the first set of document which comes into the picture is the term sheet. Okay, once the term sheet is signed, the investor engage into a due diligence. The third party submits the report. The IC approve it. You engage a lawyer. Once you engage a lawyer, they complete the legal documentation. Once the documentation is complete, the fund makes an investment. It can be an onshore fund, it could be an offshore fund. Once the investment is made, then compliance starts. It's like holding a board meeting, allotment of shares, filing an FCGPR form, all that. So everybody knows it. Right? These are all very, very basics. But till you get funds, there is no compliance, essentially.
So I have a question. How to fund the exit procedure of the first investor when you're going for the second round of funds? So, for example, if the company is not getting listed, they're not going for the listing, and they're not able to fund for the exit of first investor, how do you arrange for funds for the exit of first investor?
So there are few funds in the market who's specifically focused on secondary transactions.
Yeah.
बहुत ज्यादा नहीं है. It's like count कर सकते हो 5-10 funds market में से हैं whose investment thesis is to buy an existing investor.
Yeah.
Okay, क्योंकि existing investor के 5 साल पूरे हो गए. Now he is in hurry कि मेरे को निकलना है. My I'm getting a pressure from my LPs to exit. 5 साल हो गए, 6 साल हो गए. So I have practically dealt with case like this wherein we have sold out the portfolio to another private equity investors. Okay, so unke liye this is year 01. Okay, but
Yeah.
for the existing investor unka life cycle khatam ho raha hai. They said, boss, we want to be out. Jitna paisa ban gaya hai usko banao and then let's move on and do something else. While for the new investor, it's like starting from zero. Ki I am getting a good deal and this company has the potential. No, boss, apna paisa no, and it's like an exchange of equity. So money doesn't come to company; it's a secondary transaction. The equity move from the existing investor to a new investor. So there are funds in the market for that.
Okay. There's another question that's on the screen itself. There are many startups that fail on the compliances and regulatory payments, etc. How is this situation looked up by the funds and how it impacts the valuation?
I did not understand the question. I need to repeat it.
Yeah.
Is it there in the chat?
Yes, it is there in the chat. There are many startups that fail on compliance and regulatory payments. So how is this situation looked up by the funds and how it impacts the valuation?
Okay, failed in compliance, basically, right? That's what you said.
Yeah.
Again, it depends upon a material violation or an immaterial violation. Okay, छोटा मोटा violation होता है तो matter नहीं करता है. You can always work upon it.
Similar to the, sorry, I'm cutting you. It's similar to the question that we just answered, that the fund, the company has become an NPA, and how does
That's what I'm saying. You have to, again, you see, these are financial investors. Try to understand. The moment you start thinking from a business perspective, you're a financial investor. आप यहाँ पे बैठे हो कि यार कोई अच्छा बिजनेस मिल जाए जिसमें पैसा बने. this typical lala, you think like a lala. कोई बढ़िया धंधा मिल जाए, वो मौके की चीज मिल जाए, जिसमें मैं पैसा लगा सकूं. Now, compliance violation, it could be material, it could be immaterial, right? The bigger question is the potential. If the investors see a huge potential in a particular business, and if you're able to connect with the right person, what is the biggest challenge in this industry? To connect with the right investor. If you connect with the right investor, half of the job is done. आधा काम हो गया ना. हमें पता लगेगा कि यार ये बंदा जो है, ये फंड जो है, ये पैसा लगा सकता है मेरे धंधे में, एंड ही स्टार्ट इवेल्युएटिंग यू एज वेल. इट मीन्स कि जिसको मैंने अप्रोच किया, दिस इज अ राइट गाय, एंड आई एम रनिंग ऑन द राइट पाथ. The next question is, the investor will make an evaluation. Is it a material violation or immaterial violation? It's like a comparison between the risk and the reward. ठीक है, violation हो गया. If I fund, can we work on the violation? Can this business be revived? Can this be recouped? Can we back onto normality? What are the repercussions of that particular violation? And so it's simple business. Violation ही है ना, regulatory violation है, ठीक करा जा सकता है, right? Penalty पे कर देंगे, and there are many more ways wherein you can get rid of that compliance and get back to the normality. As long as पैसा बन रहा है धंधे में, investor would be happy to do. But in general, the world of VCs and PE, they're very cautious and particular about if you're taking panga from the regulatory authorities. It's not been taken positively. And it does not impact valuation. Valuation के इससे कोई relationship. Valuation का relation है potential of the business, है ना. अगर मुझे, if I am an investor, मुझे लगेगा कि 10 का 100 होने वाला है 5 साल में है, तो ठीक है यार, देख लेंगे. we'll see compliance, कर देंगे, फाइलिंग कर देंगे, फॉर्म फाइल कर देंगे, पेनल्टी पे कर देंगे, 1 करोड़ 2 करोड़ जो भी होगा, पैसा तो बन रहा है ना.
बिल्कुल सर.
सो फाइनेंशियल इन्वेस्टर तो फिर वैसे ही सोचते हैं ना.
Yes, sir. So there's one more question. How to raise fund for new company who has a proper channel of export-import line of various products for 2-3 years, and the company also wants to go for the SME IPO?
देखिए, how to raise fund for a particular set of business that you just mentioned, which is
Yeah, it's a new company also.
हाँ, देखिए, you got to have a history. I have already covered it, but let me try and summarize it. Nobody is interested. Again, I'm giving a practical aspect of it. Theoretically, yes, there could be few guys who might invest, but practically nobody is interested to invest in any new business. You said कि मेरे पे बहुत बढ़िया plan है, and I hold 20 years of experience. I am this and that, and I have done this and that, so and so forth. All that story is good. Now I'm beginning up a new business venture, a new company, or a new business line. It has a huge potential. This, that. It's all that story. Okay. There's no reality on the ground. You might have just incorporated a company. You might have started a business, but investor wanted to see something, some reality on the ground, some business on the ground. आप बोलो मैंने 1 साल काम किया है, 1 साल काम करके मैंने ये धंधा बनाया है. Now the dynamics of your pitch deck is completely changed. So don't only people who are known to you, or only who are strategic investor, or who can connect with you, will be able to join your gang at the very beginning. But if you're independently, professionally approaching a third party venture capitalist, I'm sorry, they're not going to do that.
There's a question regarding the bank credit facilitation scheme, and also how MSME loans can be availed under the scheme. Bank credit facilitation scheme.
I mean, frankly speaking, I haven't done it, but I'm just trying to understand the question, that if there is a scheme, okay, under which you are looking for a loan, I guess you've got to just follow the scheme and the terms and conditions. I mean, it's not equity. We're talking about debt, right?
Yeah, because not all the companies go through the venture capitalist and the NBFC funding. They prefer going through the banking channels first, and if there is some deficiency or anything, then they come back to the NBFCs and venture
Then
capital.
it's a different world. It's like Africa versus Europe. The dynamics of the debt industry, the various schemes of the government under which you're applying. So it's a different world. It's a different game. Conceptually, every investor who is going to give you debt is looking for a collateral. Okay,
Yeah.
everybody, whether it's a bank, there's a basic rule of securing a debt, whether it's a bank or an NBFC or any other institution. There are two important aspects of debt funding. One, your ability to repay. Is your business generating sufficient amount of cash to repay your EMI?
Yeah.
That's number one. Do we have sufficient amount of assets to back? If the answer to this question is yes, you will get funding from any banking or NBFC in this country. So if there is a question with respect to a particular scheme of the government, you will have to read the fine prints of that particular scheme, the terms and conditions apply under that. I'm sure things will work out.
Yes, sir. Someone is also asking for the name of the top investors for the new projects and ventures.
Name of the top investor for the new project.
Yeah.
So new project, this industry is not aligned with
Yeah.
any new project. This is called project financing. जो NBFC banking institutions करते हैं, the private equity and venture. You are saying कि मैंने, it's like I have built up a nice business plan. I'm going to set up a factory in Gujarat. I have a partner and we are bringing 2 crores of rupees. It's a manufacturing plant. We will sell this and that. And we are looking for another 50 crore from a VC. No, it's not going to work. VC is not here to come along with you in your journey from zero.
Yeah.
He will come कि boss कर लो पहले.
We have to show them that we have got something.
You do it first. I'm a financial investor. I will guide you. I will provide my strategic guidance, provided I believe in you. And obviously, there are tons of criteria before I say that I believe in you. So, project financing is not the forte of VC world.
Right, sir. I think I've covered many of the relevant questions. Yeah. So probably I think we are done with the questions.
Oh, I think it's 3:33. I deliberately, try to be fast so that we can spend more time in discussing the questions.
I just received another question, sir. Any website or source that summarize the VC status periodically?
What is VC status?
VC is probably, I'm just guessing it probably is the venture capitalist status.
What status?
I've just got the question that says any website or source that summarizes the VC status periodically.
I do not understand the meaning of the terminology VC status. I mean, status means what? There is no status of any VC.
Yes, so that is also true. It is not exact status of the venture capitalist does not have a defined status or anything. It's a venture capitalist.
They are just an investor. They are known by a terminology used in this world called as venture capitalist. They would have been set up as a private limited company or an LLP, just like your organization. They would have raised funds similar to the one that you are trying to raise. दोनों ही ने सेम काम किया है. उनका बिजनेस था आपके धंधे में पैसा लगाना, आपका बिजनेस है अपने धंधे को चलाना. So in a way, both the stakeholders, whether it's a fund or it's a business owner, they started their journey in a pretty much similar fashion. उन्होंने भी अपना marketing document try किया, आप भी अपना pitch deck तैयार करते हो. They also went out in the market, try to look for investors, जिनको LP बोलते हैं. Similarly, you also go out in the market with your pitch deck, trying to raise capital and look for connects, look for investors. Okay. They also make a pitch, you also make a pitch, they give them a check, you also get a check, They also execute a legal documentation. You also execute a legal documentation. Once the legal document is executed, their check gets funded. Once your documentation, same process, everything is same. Okay. The only difference is that their business model is that the pool of money that they have collected from different LPs, they will use that money to make investment in different portfolio companies. That's it.
So I have one question. If when the company initially raises funds, so there are many outsiders that they try and gain the control and ownership of the company. So how do you ensure that the promoters who are actually uh, the ones who have actually brought up the company, they will minimize the controls of the external parties?
There are two things. When you get an investment, there is an agreed amount of a stake which has been exchanged. Okay. That depends upon the valuation of the company. Okay. So let's take an example. An investor committed to you $1 million of funding in exchange for a 15% equity. Okay. You get $1 million and you share your 15% equity to that particular investor. Deal done, धंधा चल रहा है. Now that investor is not there in your company and running the business. At best, he's holding a seat in the board of directors in his capacity as the nominee director of the investors. Okay. Now, the mere fact that you're holding 15% stake into the business does not give him control technically. Okay. At the same time, when you execute a legal documentation with the fund at the time of funding, we call it shareholders agreement, shareholder subscription agreement, right? There are certain rights. We call it reserve rights. These rights are taken up by the investors at the time of funding. Essentially, what it means is investor says that there are certain matters जहां पे आपको मेरी अप्रूवल लेनी ही पड़ेगी. Without my approval, you cannot do this. These are primarily strategic decisions. Okay. For example, the reserve right may be if you try to diversify your business operations and diversify it from a main business activity to another one, you have to take my approval. Take for an example, you are a two-wheeler manufacturing company. Now you decide I will set up another factory where we will manufacture four-wheelers. Now the dynamics of it's all motor vehicle, but the dynamics of two-wheeler versus four-wheeler will be different. It's a very, very strategic decision, right? So you have to take the approval of the investors. Okay. Similarly, कोई भी बड़ा decision restructuring करनी है, bonus issue करना है, ESOP policy लानी है, all top level big decisions. So these are called reserve rights. So all these matters are well listed in the shareholder agreement and they're known as reserve rights. आपको merger करना है, demerger करना है, buyout करना है, investment करनी, it could be anything, right? So I won't call it control. You're not giving control to the company, right? They're just ensuring कि तुम जल्दबाजी में कुछ गलत डिसीजन मत देना, हमसे भी पूछ लेना, right? We are also 15% stakeholder in your company. हम तुम्हारा बोरा नहीं चाहेंगे. It's like if you go down, I'll also go down to the extent of 15%, right? So you just want to ensure that all these top level strategic decisions, I should know, I should have my consent, and these are called reserve rights. It's not a control, I would call it. Control it कि like कुछ भी आप कर रहे हो, आपको investor के पास जाना पड़ रहा है, ऐसा नहीं.
Yeah. Okay. There is also one other question that, for example, if a company is like a 5-year-old company, not a very old company, it's a pretty new company. So, what do you think that it should, what source it is the best for it to raise funds, like venture capital, an angel investor, or bank loans, or maybe crowdfunding, etc.? which would be the best suited option for a
Oh,
very
but-
new company?
It's a, he said 5-year-old company.
Yeah, so 5 year or under 5 year.
Again, whether it's 5-year-old, 2 years old, 3-year-old, doesn't matter. It's a very subjective question. It's very, very generic question. ये तो बिजनेस डिसाइड करेगा आपको डेट की जरूरत है, इक्विटी की जरूरत है. Why debt and why equity? Both have them their own dynamics, their reasons. डेट के प्लस है, माइनसेस है, इक्विटी के भी प्लस एंड माइनसेस है. You may get debt, you may not get equity. You may get equity, you may not get debt. It's all business specific. You can't just generalize क्या मिलता है, right? Maybe आपको collateral नहीं है तो आपको debt मिल ही नहीं सकता. Okay, maybe आपके पास collateral है, debt मिल सकता है, but you want equity, लेकिन equity नहीं मिल सकती because it does not fall one of the VC's cup of tea. It's not one of the investable businesses. They said, okay, get out. We are not interested in such kind of businesses, right? So a lot of factors to decide whether you should go for debt or you should go for equity. This is step number one. Let's say you go for debt. You have, it's like, is NBFC is a better choice? Banking institution is a better choice. Within the bank, then private bank or PSU bank. Again, a lot of factors. कि इस तरह के बिजनेस को PSU ज्यादा करते हैं या प्राइवेट बैंक ज्यादा करते हैं, NBFC ज्यादा रेट चार्ज करेगा. Again, very subjective, specific to the business. Equity में जाना है. Again, there are plethora of assumptions and subjectiveness, right? Whether an angel network will fund it, whether an early stage VC will fund it, whether a corporate VC will fund it. Again, you have to take the help of an advisor who will guide you in this journey. So don't try to mess with yourself and don't try to do everything yourself. Please take the help of the advisors who can guide you the right path rather than getting lost somewhere in the jungle and then you will regret it later on. So
Yes, that's very true.
there are multiple ways, variety of means in the market. You need to know which path to take, and it's only your advisor can guide it.
Very true. That's what they're for. I think so. We are done with almost all the questions now. Do
Excellent.
you do you want to add anything except this?
If I have to just conclude, as I said in the very beginning, in the very first slide, and I literally mean it, this is not just a fancy statement when I say that fundraising is an extreme sport, because I have experienced this as an extreme sport, right? I have seen transactions where I feel, wow, what a company, wow, what a business. अगर मेरे पे पैसे हो तो अभी ले ले, because it sometimes tick all the boxes. Fantastic management, fantastic business, fantastic growth, fantastic team, all this plus. But when you try and reach out to a VC and talk to them, पता लगा सबने धक्के मार के निकाल दिए, Like you knock the door of, let's say, 50 VCs, and everybody say, get out. So I've seen those cases as well. Okay, I have seen rejection after rejection after rejection after rejection, like hundreds of rejections, despite of the fact that you're trying your best, you've learned your investment thesis, you know people, but everybody's saying no, nahi karna. There could be hundreds of reasons for them saying no. Don't be in hurry. Just build your business model. आधे लोगों को तो मैं जो मेरे को पिचेस आते हैं मेरे को अभी नहीं मिलेगी फंडिंग. Just stay there. क्या जल्दी है? तो धंधा तो बना लो. Build your business first. Business पे फोकस है तो फंड रेजिंग मिल जाए. Why would an investor will give you 10 lakh rupees? वो दिवाना है क्या पैसा? मैं आपसे पूछ रहा हूँ कि आप डाल लोगे 10 लाख रुपए, नहीं डालोगे? क्या आपके धंधे में जान नहीं है? मैं आपको जानता नहीं. You're not my relative, you're not my brother, you're not my family member. I don't trust you. फाइनेंशियल इन्वेस्टर धंधे में दम लगेगा, पैसा डालोगे, नहीं लगेगा तो नहीं डालूंगा. सिंपल एज दैट.
Very true.
So you got to wear the hat of an investor. If you would have been an investor, if you would have been in this place, क्या तुम उसमें पैसा लगाते हो? Basis that pitch deck, basis that information that you've shared. If you get the answer, yes. I mean, you get the answer. If whatever answer you get, yes or no, you get the answer. So think like an investor, and you will have the answers to your questions. And venture capital and private equity is a very, very niche area, very unique industry. You need a lot of experience and a lot of learning. I'm still learning every single day. I'm still, uh, I'm still assessing इस धंधे को पैसा मिलेगा कि नहीं मिलेगा. It's a judgment. After
Yes.
years of working, कि इसको कोई देगा? Is there somebody in the market? Can this business be funded? Can this company be funded? I'm talking about equity funding. Now
Yeah.
that assessment itself is a $1 million. So like 80% people come to me, नहीं मिलेगा पैसे यार. Don't worry. I'm giving you feedback. धक्के खाते रहो market में. You will spend next 6 months on LinkedIn sending connects, talking to multiple people, and you might end up with some advisor charging you some money, and nothing going to happen. So
I think this happens a lot.
it happens a lot. Fancy decks are flooded in the market. Okay. A couple of days back, a guy reached out to me. I asked just simple, fancy deck, 20 pages presentation. I asked him 5 questions. मैंने कहा मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा presentation में कहाँ लिखा है. 5 questions का आंसर दे दो मेरे. What is the stage of your business? धंधे में कितना पैसा लगाया तूने? Scale क्या है? अभी जो फाइनेंशियल ईयर खत्म हुआ है उसमें नेट रेवेन्यू बेटा पैट क्या है? ठीक है, कितने पैसे चाहिए और ये इतनी बड़ी वैल्यूएशन जो मांगी है उसका कोई बेसिस है? लाइक बिल्कुल सिंपल लेमैन की तरह हमने क्वेश्चन 6 क्वेश्चंस का आंसर दे दो. मेरे को ये फैंसी प्रेजेंटेशन समझ नहीं आ रही. प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट ये है, उसका सोल्यूशन ये है, मार्केट बहुत बड़ा है और उसको $50 बिलियन मिल गया और हमारा एक्सपेंशन प्लान ही है कि 4 साल में हम 500 करोड़. दिस कंप्लीट नॉनसेंस.
You have to first tell them आप कर क्या रहे हो.
सिंपल बातें नहीं कर रहे ना. पहले आप अपना पास्ट बताओ, आप प्रेजेंट बताओ, फिर फ्यूचर बताओ. People starting पहले वो फ्यूचर बताते हैं. I know it's important for the fund. At the end of the day, fund is needed for future.
Yes.
But जब तक मैं ये नहीं जान लूँगा who the hell you are, okay, I need to know this and very well. तो आपका current business status क्या है, क्या traction है, कहाँ पे खड़े हो, किस stage पे खड़े हो, पता ही नहीं. And why people are not answering these questions on the LinkedIn? Because उनका आंसर उनका है ही नहीं. पैसे लगाए 1 लाख रुपए, फंडिंग चाहिए $3 मिलियन की. समझ रहे हो?
Yes.
So you got to wear the hat of an investor and then assess the opportunity. You will get all the answers to yourself.
Yes, sir. Very true.
ठीक है जी.
So I think on this note, we can just come to a formal vote of thanks. So good evening, everyone. On behalf of the committee on MSME Startup, it gives me immense gratitude, and I extend our heartful thanks to each and every one of you for gracing this occasion and this webinar. And I would also like to thank our chairman for the committee, CA Dheeraj Kumar Khandelwal sir, and the vice chairman, CA Raj Chavla sir, for their unwavering support and guidance in organizing this event. We are deeply honored to have you, sir, CA Tarun Chaurasia ji, as our esteemed speaker for today's session. Your expertise and insights into the intricacies of the fundraising and startup ecosystem have been truly enlightening. So thank you so much, sir, for the wonderful session.
Thank you very much, Ashay. It's always good to speak to the fellow members of the institute, the founders. You also learn alongside, as simple as that. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it. We look
Thank
forward
you,
to more
Thank
interactions.
you, Ashay ma'am. Thank you, Tom sir,
Thank you, Ji.
for
Thank you
giving
very
a
much.
wonderful session.
Bye. Take care. Bye-bye.
Sir.